author, is a New York Times bestseller. Her romance novels have sold over 1 million copies. Her work has been featured in Time, The Wall Street Journal, Cosmopolitan, and so many more. The Bay's own. Please help me welcome Jasmine Guillory. Make some noise one more time for Jasmine. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a little awkward. I had ankle surgery a few months ago, so I'm still hobbling around, but I'm excited to be out of the house.
It is all good. I'm so happy that you are here. I was telling her, like, me and a lot of my friends, we don't read romance novels until we read a Jasmine Guillory book. Like, the wedding series got me through the pandemic. Honestly. Okay, so happy. Before we get into flirting lessons, though, I want to talk a little bit about your journey. Because if you guys don't know, Jasmine originally was an attorney before she became a full-time writer. What gave you the courage to make that leap? And what did that transition really look like behind the scenes?
Well, I often get the question, what gave me the courage? I feel like it was sort of less about courage and more about practicality. Like, I did both for a long time. So I wrote my first 3 books while I was working full time. And it was really only when I was like, okay, I think I can support myself with the writing for at least the next 2 years that I could stop and stop working as a lawyer and just do the writing. But I was in the Bay Area. I need to be able to pay my rent.
Right.
there was no I believe in myself. No, I had to be able to believe in myself and also my bank account in order to go.
Because people think that it's just like a switch. Okay, I'm gonna go be this. No, I need to pay my bills.
Yes.
There's another book I read. I forgot the author, but it's called Real Artists Have Day Jobs.
Yeah.
So that's just so true.
Right, exactly. And I was when I wrote The Wedding Date, I was working full time. I would go across the street to the Starbucks to write at lunchtime and then come back and write after work. When it started to get really hard, actually, because balancing the writing part and the working full time was a struggle, but it was okay. It was hard when I had to do all the other stuff that goes along with being an author. So once my first 2 books were published, then I was doing things like podcasts in the middle of the day or having to do interviews. And that is hard to do with a full-time job. There were a few times when I was hiding in a closet at work to do a podcast all day. And I was trying to run home, so that really got much more complicated.
Can everyone just find my amazing writing? Yes, I get it. And romance specifically, because from legal briefs to love stories, that's quite the opposite. Yeah. What put you towards romance specifically?
It's funny. There's a real strong cohort of romance authors who are also lawyers. I think it's just being able to do something so different from your work, right? Because one of the reasons I started writing in the first place was that I missed having some sort of creative outlet. And so it was fun to just go with my imagination and write something fun, which, there are many things that I loved about working as a lawyer, but the writing itself is not quite what I would call fun. And so I think people just like to be able to let your imagination go. And also I think you see so many, working as a lawyer in the Bay Area, I see so many strong, accomplished women, and I wanted to write sort of the fun side of their life, hanging out with their friends, going out, meeting people, falling in love. That was sort of the part that I was more interested in.
It almost became easier because this is fresh, this is new, it's exciting. Speaking of, this book features your first same-sex relationship at the center of the story, which honestly felt so refreshing and grounded. What made you want to tell this particular love story?
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area, and so to me, I'm used to seeing same-sex relationships all around me all the time. And so it just felt natural to think about who these people would be, what their relationship was. Avery and Taylor, who are the 2 main characters for Flirting Lessons, were both characters in my book right before this one, Drunk on Love. Yeah. And so I had kind of a germ of an idea for this book a few years before. I do a writing retreat with some other writer friends once a year, and we were in the car on the way there, and they were talking about someone that they knew but that I didn't know, and one of them said to the other, like, oh well, she breaks a lot of hearts. And I like pulled out my phone and wrote that down. I know, because I was like, that's a character, right? Like, who is that person who their friend would say so casually about them, like she breaks a lot of hearts? And so I was thinking, like, I want to write about her. Like,
I just pictured like the notepad.
Yeah, and then I wrote Taylor like as a side character in Drunk on Love, and I was like, she's the one who breaks all the hearts. And so then I was thinking, like, what is her love story? Who finally gets her, right? Who's finally like, who does she finally like want to steal the heart of? And it was so fun to think about her and Avery, who in many ways is her total opposite.
Right, and I love that I connect with both of these characters, because now that I'm in my 30s, like Taylor, not necessarily the heartbreaker stuff, but just like more outgoing, more like a sense of who you are, you relate to her. But like my 20s, even leading up, because I believe she's 29, right? Like about to be 30, and she's just like, did I waste my 20s? Like that's exactly what I was like in my 20s too, So I feel like I'm a little bit of both of those characters. But for those who haven't read the book yet, tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Yeah, so Avery, right, it's 29. She's going to be 30 later in the year. She's sort of always done what she's supposed to do, right? She like has worked hard, gotten good jobs, like helped her family, dated, the guy that everybody thought was a nice guy, and he wasn't. And so now she's sort of feeling like, I should have had more fun. I don't know how to have fun. How am I supposed to do that? I want to like go out and flirt with people and, have a hobby. I don't have hobbies. And at the beginning of the book, she drinks a little too much wine at a wine event because we're set up in Napa. And she sort of confesses all of this to Taylor, who she knows a little bit, but not that much. And Taylor says, oh, well, I can teach you how to flirt with people. And so they embark on a series of flirting lessons, which after Avery sobers up, she's like, why did I say I was going to do that? I didn't want to do that. I don't know. I can't believe she's really going to make me do that. And so Avery's kind of terrified, and Taylor is like, this is going to be fun.
Right. And if you read a lot of Jasmine's books, like being from the Bay Area, I feel like the Leo meme where he's like pointing, like, wait, I don't know reference. How important is it? Because I'm also an East Bay girl. If you guys don't know, Jasmine is from Oakland. How important is it to you to weave a little bit of home into your stories?
I always do. It's funny because sometimes it's not even like I often don't name real places, but I name like the feeling of real places, right? Like I got a lot of inspiration for Noble Family Vineyards, the winery that Taylor works at, that stars in Drunk on Love, from Brown Vineyards, which is a Black-owned winery in Napa. It's very different, but it's funny because my mom, who I know everything about wine from, has been a member of Brown for a long time. And so like I sort of learned about like the family and how they, started the winery and what the struggles were. And so the winery itself doesn't look like that. Like I've been to a bunch of wineries and sort of combined a lot of them, but I want it to feel like a winery that can really be there, It's in, for my other books, the ones that are like set in the East Bay, there are like intersections I drive past where I'm like, that's where Alexa lives, like it's not like, I don't name that in my book, but like I know where it is. And so it just, because I want it to feel like you really kind of get to know the Bay Area.
I love that. No, super dope. And I'm East Bay girl, I'm just like every time I'm like, yes. Let's talk about the flirting lessons, because I was taking notes reading this book. I was like, I need to be more like Taylor. But, especially in the age of online dating, it's like, where do you go to meet people? A part I love about this book is Taylor stresses Avery out, because she'll like surprise her, like, hey, we're going to go here. She doesn't know exactly where they're going to go. Yeah. So how did you come up with that list of places to meet people?
I did a lot of brainstorming, just really thinking of like, both places that there would be a lot of people there, that you would be able to like have conversations with people. The first flirting lesson is set at a bookstore event, because I have seen, like, from my events, but like from other events that I go to, those are things where like people are chatting, people are making friends, there's something, and I think this is key to, I think, a lot of the places where they go to the flirting lessons. There's something built in to have a conversation about, because you can start by talking about the book or the author, or like, what other books have you read? And it kind of starts the conversation, so it's easy. And so I think that's actually a sort of key place to, like, if you're thinking about doing this, like, go to places where they're sort of built in, like, places for conversations, which really helped. But also I wanted places that would be fun to write a scene about,
right,
and that would kind of stress Avery out a little bit,
right? Yeah.
Because Avery is like nervous about doing all of this, and I wanted her to like be stressed about it, but also be able to kind of relax into it and have fun eventually.
Right, just take her out of her comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
How important is it just in general, like, to go to those things alone as well? Because I feel like with your group of friends, it's kind of easy to like shut people out, or maybe you're not talking to other people.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think, right, like, especially if you're with like, a group of 4 or 5 people, it can be intimidating for someone else to like come into the circle. But if you're maybe with just one friend and you like are like, okay, we're going to split up and then come back together,
right,
or you sort of have an opening for people to come in, like times when I've been like with like one girlfriend, and then someone was like, oh, can I sit with you guys? Yes, and that I think helps, that to like kind of, you know how sometimes you're at a party and people are like in these tight little circles,
right.
like you want to have your circle open enough to invite other people in.
I know some people came here alone today too.
Yeah.
I think surprise someone. I want to talk about the dancing.
Yes.
Because that's where things really start to heat up. Do you have a background in dance, or was there any like movies that inspired those moments?
You know what's so funny is my next book is all about dance. And I actually did a lot of dance when I was a lot younger. But I also find like, as a romance writer, dance is just so fun to use kind of as like a thing that brings people together, right? Because you like have to touch each other, and then there's the music, and then there's other people around, and it feels awkward at first, but people are like, no, especially dance lessons, because people are like, no, get closer. You have to relax into it.
Right.
Like, well, I have to get closer. So
yeah.
So that, that is, I think, just a really fun way to like kind of force characters to do a little bit more. So that, and also like dance lessons, especially dance lessons where you're like dancing with strangers, feel like such a good way, partly to get to know people, but also to like, because part of the, thing about this book is Avery kind of has to force herself to relax some, and she's stressed about, I have to dance with strangers. But like that, she just has to like make herself get into it. And so that was kind of really fun to think about, like, how is she going to deal with this? And then how is Taylor going to deal with seeing her dance with strangers? Like, how do they feel about that early on in the book when they're like, oh, we're just friends, I'm not interested in that,
I was like, was she watching Dirty Dancing? Yeah. I was like, this is inspired. And we talked about Avery and Taylor, like, very opposite, and I feel like their like also emotional growth is very different. Do you think timing plays a big role in love in general? And did you intentionally write them as mirrors of like different lives and different seasons?
You know what's so funny is not at first. I feel like so often in my writing, it's not until I sort of get, I tend to write very messy first drafts and figure out a lot of stuff on the way. And then towards the end of a first draft, I'm like, oh, wait, this is how it all works. And so at first that I wasn't really writing them as mirrors of each other. And then that sort of happened, and that made sort of a lot of things in the book become clear to me. But they're kind of, they both struggle with different things, and they're both totally confident about some things in their life and not at all about other things. And so that was really, because I was really thinking about, I think one of my key questions for myself going into any romance is like, why do these two fall in love with each other? What is it about her that makes her fall in love, and vice versa? And so thinking about that with Avery and Taylor, I was really thinking like, what's the things about them that draw them to the other person? and you know, other than like attraction, because I want them to be attracted to each other,
Right.
but like what qualities are there about each other? And so I think they're drawn to each other because of the oppositeness, because they admire things in the other person that they feel like they don't have, and then the other person makes like hypes them up about the stuff that they do, you know, that they are good at. And so that was really fun to write and to think about, because I think we are all a lot more critical of ourselves than we should be, and also than other people are, you know. And so I really wanted Avery and Taylor to like be each other's biggest cheerleaders.
And I love that that character development kind of came naturally, because in the beginning it's like, okay, this girl has to figure it out, this girl doesn't, but it's like, oh wait, Avery's also helping Taylor in many ways too, and helping her. When you're writing romantic tension, how do you know when to hold back and like when to let it spark?
You know, it's really kind of thinking about where they are in the, like where I am in the book and the pacing, right? Because also it's different for every book, you know. In some of my books, sort of I want that spark to happen right away, and then something else, you know, happens. Right. And so I'm really thinking about like, how do I make it so that it keeps like the tension up, so that people want to keep reading, but that it's not that I don't do things too fast or too soon, or that like I don't want it to get like, I don't want it to be, you know, for a while, like the first book that I wrote that was kind of slow burn, I was like, this part is getting boring. Like, I don't want it to be boring. So I need, you know, you need to have like fun stuff in there to keep their tension with each other and to keep them going. And also, like with this book, I really felt like Avery and Taylor were getting to know each other and becoming friends. So I wanted that attraction to happen early, but also the oh wait, I think I really care about this person, to like slowly build.
Did you think a lot about your other writings, like going into their stories kind of intentionally, like, okay, no, this has to be this kind of love story?
You know, not really. I think I am always, because the thing about the first few drafts of writing is that it all feels brand new. Like, I always feel like I don't remember how I did that before.
Yeah. Like that's
or it feels like, well, it was so easy that other time. And then I'll say that to my friends and they're like, don't you remember the time you called me at 11 o'clock at night crying? And I was like, no, that didn't happen.
Yeah, I blocked that out.
Yeah. So I really like try to start each book really thinking about who these people are, who the characters are, and like what their relationship might be. And so sometimes, like, I always start with some sort of an outline, but sometimes by the time I've sort of figured out who the characters are, I'm like, oh, they wouldn't do that. I need to like figure out what is like what truly would draw them together, or what truly would happen in this book for the two of them.
I feel like you're learning about the characters yourself.
Absolutely.
As you're writing them along. Yeah. I love that. Was there a scene in the book, or even like a whole section, that challenged you the most, emotionally or technically?
I think for me, there's a scene towards the end that's sort of a culmination of a lot of things that was a real challenge for me, because I wanted it to feel like it's a really hard thing for Taylor that happens, and I wanted that to feel hard for her for a reason. I didn't want it to feel like she was overreacting to something, but I also didn't want it to feel like I wanted to strike the right balance. Right. I didn't want it to be too much or too hard, or I didn't like, because for me it's always hard to have sort of the hard, like the dark time in the book, because I want it to feel real for the couple, real for the characters and their relationship, but also something that you can come back from, right? And so it's, you know, Taylor throughout the book is kind of dealing with tension with one of her best friends. And so I wanted that relationship to like be okay, but also to recognize that they were going through some hard things and like difficult stuff happened. And so that I kind of struggled with that scene a lot, to kind of make it feel right, and to make it feel like these are two people who really care about each other, but also are doing quite the right thing.
Right. And I love the side characters too, because even just regular relationships, that's such a big thing. Like, I want to meet your friends. And it becomes such a big part. And even how you deal with your own friendships and your relationships and balancing it all. So how important was it for those side characters as well?
Yeah, for me, in getting to know characters and as I'm writing a book, right? One of my first thoughts about them is like, who are their friends? Who are their family? Who are they close to? And then how do they know these people? What kind of relationship do they have? Like, right? Are they always kind of joking each other, making fun of each other? Or is it, or is it a different kind of relationship? Because I feel like every friendship is different.
Right.
What do you do with those friends? How do you hang out with them? Because I feel also everyone has a different kind of place that they come to in a friendship. Or is it like your sister or your mom who you're close to? And so thinking about that and thinking about those relationships really helps me figure out characters. And I want each of those people to feel like whole individuals too. Like I don't want them to just be there as like the person who they have that big conversation with at the end, right? Like
right.
I want that conversation to feel earned, or those characters to feel like, oh, you know what they're doing when they're off the page. And so that's really what I'm thinking about as I'm writing. Like sometimes I've had much longer scenes with friends that I'm like, okay, I need to pull this back a little bit. It helps me kind of figure out who the characters are and what's really going on.
I was thinking, even if like you said, like you have your fun friends, maybe have this friend I go to when I'm having that mental breakdown at 11 a.m. But like the characters' friends do tell so much about who that character is as well.
Yeah, and exactly what you said. Like you can think about it now and think about like who's the person you text when like something fun happened at work and you want to go celebrate. Right. Who's the person you text when like you're really depressed and you need to have a phone call. Sometimes they're the same person, but sometimes you have different people for everything. Or, do you call your mom? Do you call your dad? Like all of that kind of stuff. And so that really helps me get to know characters and know who they are.
I love it. Well, I love this book. We're going to open up the floor in just a second. But what do you ultimately hope readers walk away with after finishing Flirting Lessons?
I think one of the things that I really thought about a lot in this book is, I wrote this book sort of as we were coming out of the worst parts of the pandemic, right? And I feel like everybody came out of that time feeling like, I don't remember how to talk to people. I've been shut in my house. I don't know, and leaving every interaction feeling like I was so awkward. Oh my God. And I think you always are much more critical of yourself. Like everybody else is also leaving in that interaction thinking about themselves, not about you. They're not waking up at 3 a.m. thinking about like the crazy thing that girl said. Like they're thinking about it, and so I think so just in order to like make friends, get into relationships, meet people, you have to put yourself out there in ways that feel terrifying.
Right.
But it's the more you do it, the more kind of it's okay. And also I think one of the things about this book is like nothing that I feel like too many people think like, oh God, by the time I'm 30, I have to do, there's all these things I have to check off of my list, or else I have failed as a human being. Yeah. And there's so many new and different and exciting things that you can do at any age. And I think you don't have to you can change your mind about who you want to be. And, you can be a new person when you grow up at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50. And so I think that's kind of some of the things I was thinking about as I wrote this book.
I definitely got that. Like I said, I related to both characters, but 2 different times in my life. Yeah. I'm like, maybe I'm a little Taylor now. Yeah. Last week I was Avery. Yeah. I love that. Well, we're going to open up the floor if anyone has some questions for Jasmine.
Okay, so first I want to say that I really appreciate how you, thank you, appreciate how you allowed Avery to show up and experience in queerness. So I wrote my question down. So her experience as a queer woman isn't treated as something embarrassing or lesser. So what was important to you about portraying queer newness without shame?
One of the things that I thought about a lot for Avery is I wanted her to have the experience of being excited about this, right? I didn't want it to be a like, oh no, what do I think? Do I like a woman? You know, I wanted it to be like, oh my God, you guys, listen to what happened. And so actually that's one of the parts of her journey, that she like starts making friends and, you know, goes to like a gardening, you know, to a garden and like meets a friend there. And I really wanted like her to like have queer friends who were hers only, so she could talk about Taylor and be like, and so that was really important to me in this book, is that I wanted her to like have that fun, this is so exciting, you know, I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do but never quite did moment. Perfect. Thank you.
That's a really good question. Any other questions? Here.
Hi, so I have a question about the wedding date.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, congratulations on getting it adapted.
Oh, thank you.
As this process starts with screenwriting and Tracy Olivier, how protective do you feel of your characters and it being adapted?
So Taylor Jenkins Reid once said, who is another amazing author, once said that for things like adaptations, she feels like they're her grandchildren, right? Like her children are her books, and she feels very protective of them. Her grandchildren, like they can come over, she can treat them, and then send them back out into the world and like say like have fun, you know. And so that I think is how I'm trying to think of it, right? There were certain things that were really important to me, that I sort of made clear up front, like, you know, obviously one of the most important things was that like it was going to be about a Black woman, because I haven't heard this quite so much in recent years, but you know, I had heard horror stories from authors, people saying like, oh, well, I would love to adapt your books, I just need to make everybody white. And I was like, that's not gonna happen. But there, you know, so there were certain things that were important to me. And then with other stuff, like I feel like I know how to write books. Sometimes I think that, you know, but like I don't know how to make a successful movie. And so sometimes with movies you have to cut things, you have to change things. And so I just like want to have like a fun grandchild who goes out into the world. I
love it. Like she beat me to that one. Yeah, we're gonna talk more about the wedding date for sure. Okay. Any others? Okay, well, let's talk more about the wedding date. Okay. Yes, because it's gonna be a series. How do we stay updated? How did this, you know, come to fruition?
Yeah, you know, it's really exciting. Netflix has optioned it, and two of the producers are going to be Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan, which is very exciting, with their production company. And so I'm just, Tracy Oliver is writing the screenplay now. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. A lot of things can happen in between an option and an actual movie. So let's just all send up all the good energy into the world for that. But I think as, you know, people, you know, as we see with like other adaptations of, you know, romance novels, romantic comedies, people love to watch and read about love. And so I think that's something that Hollywood doesn't really take seriously, partly because a lot of the decision makers in Hollywood are men. And so they think, well, men don't care about this, so we should not care about it. But also I think, you know, I was having this conversation with some fellow authors recently, that people don't take happy stories seriously. Right. They think like in order for something to be important, it has to be depressing. And so, you know, let's just hope that all of the, you know, goodness from recent great adaptations has done some stuff to change their minds.
Bring back the rom-com.
Yeah, exactly.
Economy.
Exactly. Yeah.
All around. Filthy. Yes. And you have another book on the way.
Yes. I have a book coming out in October. It's my first young adult book. It's called It's Only Dancing. It's set it's a loose reinterpretation of Dirty Dancing, with Black teenagers at a family camp in Southern California. So so that one was a lot of fun to write, and I hope people really like it.
Is Dirty Dancing your favorite dance movie?
Look, there's so many.
Yeah. Don't feel like 3 times.
Dirty Dancing is obviously my favorite, but
yeah, for sure.
Center Stage is real close to my heart.
Okay.
So, you know, Yeah.
Jealous. Okay, well, I'm so excited. Thanks so much for being here, Jasmine
Thank
Guillory,
you all
everyone.
so much.
Where can we follow you? Keep up on updates.
Yeah, you can follow me. I'm most often on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Jasmine Pics. And I also have a newsletter that I'll link to it in my Instagram, but it's Jasmine Guillory at Substack.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
We
you.
will have this interview up on Bald 94.9. Again, read a book with Angelina on iHeartRadio. We're having live events every month, so follow us on Instagram at Angelina's Book Club. And I mean, you guys get to meet Jasmine Guillory and take some photos and everything. So we'll have people lighting up over here. Is that right? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.